Agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill makes very minor changes, which we do not oppose, so the Green Party will be supporting the bill. But I think that in order to understand the minor changes, it's important to understand the entire context of the road user charges and fuel excise duty scheme. So for those who are watching at home today, the road user charges are charges that heavy vehicles pay those who are using diesel, and therefore they don't pay the tax directly. They pay road user charges instead of fuel excise duty. And road user charges contribute about 1/3 of the money to the National Land Transport Fund, which is used on transport projects. Fuel excise duty, which is obviously levied on all petrol vehicles, contributes about 2/3 of the National Land Transport Fund, $2 billion. So the total National Land Transport Fund is made up of $3 billion, about 1/3 of which is from trucks and heavy vehicles, 2/3 of which comes from light passenger vehicles. This is a change under this government, and when they overhauled the road user charges and scheme, it actually reduced the contribution that was being made by large vehicles, heavy vehicles, and increased the contribution from light petrol vehicles or households because they put up the petrol tax quite a bit, and they basically dropped the contribution from truckies. And of course, one of the justifications for the changes to the road user charges system was that if we made it more simple, then we would reduce evasion of road user charges. But of course, when they came and spoke to us at Select Committee, it turned out that evasion hasn't fallen at all. Evasion is about the same as what it was before. But overall, the road freight industry is paying less towards our roads than they were before the national government came into power. One other important thing to realize is that about $1 billion of ratepayer money goes into our roads and our transport system. So although there's often some idea bandied about that roads are user pays, that's not true at all. The entire system is full of indirect charges and cross subsidies, and about 1/4 of the entire transport budget is contributed by ratepayers, but they actually pay for half of local roads, and local roads carry half of all vehicle kilometers traveled. So basically what's happening is there are as many vehicle trips on local roads as there are on the state highway network, but most of the money levied from motorists who are driving on local roads, which are paid for in part by ratepayers, most of that money that is levied in fuel excise duty and road user charges is going to the state highway network, not to the local roads. That is also a consequence of policy changes by this government, who have sucked most of the money out of the transport budget and are applying it to just a few very expensive projects that benefit very few vehicles and people. So, really in 2014, you couldn't think of a worse time to be spending billions of dollars on state highways, because we already have a very mature road network, and what it really needs is to be looked after and maintained properly. But by duplicating a few of the networks in the state highway system, the government is actually taking 75% of the money on new transport infrastructure and spending it on only 4% of the trips. I know this is a lot of numbers, and I know that might be confusing for members opposite, but ultimately, it's important to understand these numbers and take an objective look at how we're spending the transport budget. And at the moment, the national government is spending the transport budget in a very irresponsible way. And what's most concerning is not only the fact that they're spending most of the money on a very small proportion of vehicle trips, which is not going to benefit people in New Zealand when they're trying to get to work, trying to get to school, trying to get to the shops. It's not even going to help our exporters who are trying to get their product from the farm gate to the port, because most of the time they're not even traveling on the state highways that are receiving all of the money. The freight demand study, for example, shows that most of the freight in Northland doesn't leave Northland. So although the government is trying to justify an extension to the motorway north of Auckland so that more people can live further north of Auckland and commute into the city by car, they justify it on the basis that somehow it's going to help the economy of Northland. Well, the Puahoi to Warkworth Holiday Highway doesn't even go into Northland, and most of the freight in Northland doesn't travel on that road. But It's easy for the National Party to bandy about these slogans, which are completely meaningless, and say that they're for economic growth, when in fact they don't understand the first thing about how to improve economic productivity or have a functioning transport system that is going to benefit New Zealanders well into the future. And the Green Party is actually here to say that we have a smart green vision for our country, and we are going to use best practice evidence from overseas to ensure that New Zealanders have safe, affordable options for getting to work and to school, because that is what's really important. And the way that you do that is not by throwing most of the money on a few highways that carry 4% of vehicle trips. We need to invest in the City Rail Link and finish it on time in Auckland so that we can get 5 trains every 5 minutes. That will make a real difference to commuters in Auckland. A train every 5 minutes will make it much more attractive to take the train, and it will take cars off the road. So it benefits the people using the road, and it benefits those who are using the train. We want to reduce public transport fares because they are too expensive, far too expensive. And when you reduce public transport fares, it makes it more attractive to take the bus, and it means there's fewer cars on the road, less congestion for those who are driving. It just makes economic sense. We want to make it safe for kids to walk and cycle to school because that's their birthright. Kids are no longer walking and cycling to school at the same rate that they used to because parents are understandably afraid. They fear for the lives of their children because we have spent so much money facilitating the flow of vehicles around schools rather than putting aside safe cycle lanes and safe pedestrian ways for people to walk and cycle to school. And obviously, all New Zealanders know during school holidays there isn't the same level of traffic congestion. So a very low-cost, effective way of dealing with traffic congestion is investing $50 million a year into safe walking and cycling around schools, as the Green Party would. So while this government is wasting most of our tax dollars on projects that aren't actually going to help New Zealanders get around, the Green Party is standing up and saying, we believe in choice, we're going to invest in smarter choices, and we're going to ensure that there is a road user charges system that is actually fair, not one that is subsidizing road vehicles and road freight at the expense of everyone else. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I call Mike Sabin.
Thank you, sir. An excellent speech for the party vote national in Northland. I will take the speech of Julian Genta and email it far and wide because it's a very, very good demonstration.